Welcome to Future Epoch, where we learn more about our world. Every year, diagnostic errors affect an estimated 12 million Americans. Conditions missed, cancers caught too late, rare diseases that go unnamed for years while patients move from one specialist to another. Medicine has always been as much art as science, dependent on human pattern recognition operating at the edge of human capability, fatigued, fallible, and finite. But something is changing inside the clinic. A new kind of pattern recognition is arriving, one that does not tire and does not forget, and it is learning faster than any physician ever could. The question is no longer whether artificial intelligence will transform medical diagnosis. It already is. The question is what that transformation will actually mean. Artificial intelligence in healthcare is not a single technology. It is an umbrella term covering everything from algorithms that read X-rays to systems that predict overnight patient deterioration, from drug discovery platforms that model molecular structures to tools that flag unusual patterns buried inside electronic health records. What unites them is a shared ambition to reduce diagnostic error, extend access to specialist-level analysis, and help clinicians make better decisions faster. The stakes are not abstract. Healthcare represents roughly 10% of global GDP. Diagnostic accuracy sits at the center of almost every patient outcome that matters. And for the better part of the 20th century, diagnostic capability was essentially constrained by geography. If you happened to live near a great hospital, you had access to great diagnostics. If you did not, you largely made do. The idea that computers might assist in medical diagnosis is not new. In the 1970s, researchers at Stanford developed MYCINA, an early expert system designed to recommend antibiotic treatments for blood infections. It performed surprisingly well in controlled studies. It never made it into clinical practice. The knowledge required to encode medicine's full complexity into rigid logical rules was simply too vast, and the real world too unpredictable. The breakthrough came from a different direction entirely. In 2012, a deep neural network developed at the University of Toronto won the ImageNet visual recognition competition by a margin that genuinely shocked the computer vision field. Deep learning, the technique it demonstrated, turned out to be extraordinarily capable at extracting patterns from images. And medicine is full of images, X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, pathology slides, retinal photographs, dermatology images. The fit was immediate and obvious. By 2016, DeepMind published results showing that its AI system could detect over 50 eye diseases from retinal scans with an accuracy comparable to expert ophthalmologists. In the same year, researchers at Stanford demonstrated an algorithm that could match board-certified dermatologists in classifying skin cancers from clinical photographs. These were not incremental improvements over previous software. They were demonstrations that a trained model, given sufficient labeled data, could perform at specialist level in a narrowly defined diagnostic task. AlphaFold, also developed by DeepMind, represented a different category of breakthrough entirely. Released publicly in 2020 and substantially expanded in 2021, it addressed what biologists had long considered one of the hardest unsolved problems in science, predicting the three-dimensional structure of a protein from its amino acid sequence. Because proteins are the molecular machinery of life and the primary targets of most pharmaceutical drugs, AlphaFold transformed the landscape of drug discovery and gave researchers tools for understanding disease at a molecular level that had not previously existed. The regulatory architecture began to move in parallel. The United States Food and Drug Administration established formal frameworks for evaluating AI and machine learning-enabled medical devices. By the early 2020s, the agency had authorized hundreds of such devices, the majority focused on radiology and medical imaging applications. The technology had crossed from research promise into regulated clinical reality. For all its documented promise, AI in diagnostics carries a serious structural problem, one that goes considerably deeper than imperfect accuracy rates. The models that power these systems are trained on data that reflects the world as it already exists, with all its existing inequalities faithfully encoded. Early skin cancer detection algorithms, for example, were trained predominantly on images of lighter-skinned patients. Their performance on darker skin tones was measurably and consistently worse, raising the genuine possibility that AI systems could systematically underserve the populations who already face the greatest barriers to quality care. There is also the persistent problem of interpretability. Many of the most capable diagnostic AI systems are, in technical terms, black boxes. A radiologist can point to a specific feature of an image, a shadow, an asymmetry, a calcification, and explain precisely why it raised their suspicion. A deep learning model produces a confidence score, a highlighted region, a classification, but not a reason that would hold up under clinical or legal scrutiny. Medicine requires accountability. An unexplained recommendation from an opaque system sits awkwardly in a profession built on transparent clinical reasoning and documented justification. Then there is the unresolved question of liability. When an AI system recommends a course of action and harm results, the question of who bears responsibility, the algorithm's developer, the hospital that deployed it, or the physician who acted on its output, has not been clearly answered in most jurisdictions. Regulatory frameworks have struggled to keep pace, particularly when dealing with adaptive systems that continue learning from new data after deployment, potentially changing their behavior in ways that are difficult to monitor or audit retrospectively. Physician acceptance has proved to be an additional and underestimated barrier. Clinical surveys consistently reveal skepticism from practicing clinicians, many of whom worry specifically about automation bias, the documented tendency of human operators to defer to algorithmic output, even when their own clinical judgment should override it. The trajectory of IBM Watson Health, marketed with exceptional ambition as an AI-powered oncology platform before being quietly wound down after failing to deliver reliable clinical guidance in real-world settings, became a defining cautionary story about the considerable distance between compelling demonstration and reliable deployment. Despite these tensions, the direction of travel is clear. AI-assisted diagnostics is becoming a standard feature of modern radiology departments, pathology laboratories, and population screening programs. The potential benefits are not evenly distributed, and that unevenness matters profoundly. In regions where specialist physicians are genuinely scarce, across much of sub-Saharan Africa, rural South Asia, and remote communities across every continent, an AI system capable of screening for diabetic retinopathy, tuberculosis, or cervical cancer from a standard photograph could represent access to diagnostic capability that would otherwise simply not exist for those populations. At the population level, the ability to process imaging data at scale creates opportunities that have no human equivalent. A single algorithm can systematically review every chest X-ray acquired in a hospital over a given period, flagging cases for priority review and identifying patterns that only become statistically visible across thousands of cases. Early detection programs for lung cancer, breast cancer, and cardiovascular disease are beginning to demonstrate measurable real-world improvements in outcomes, as AI screening tools move from controlled trials into routine clinical deployment. The drug discovery application may ultimately prove the most consequential of all. AlphaFold's protein structure database, made freely available to the global research community, has already been cited in hundreds of published scientific studies. Understanding the precise shapes of proteins allows researchers to identify drug targets with specificity that was previously unachievable, potentially compressing the timeline from biological insight to viable clinical treatment by years. The fundamental question that AI in diagnostics poses is not whether machines can match physicians in defined tasks. In narrow, well-specified domains, on carefully curated datasets, many already can. The more important and more difficult question is how healthcare systems should be organized when that capability becomes widely and reliably available. The answer is almost certainly not wholesale replacement of clinical judgment. It is augmentation, intelligent triage, and an extension of specialist-level access to places and populations that have never had it. The radiologist who uses AI to verify their reads is likely to be more accurate than either working alone. The screening program that uses AI to prioritize urgent cases makes better use of the specialist capacity that exists. But that positive outcome is not automatic or guaranteed. It requires deliberate clinical training, careful and monitored deployment, rigorous and ongoing bias auditing, clear regulatory frameworks, and an honest institutional reckoning with what these systems do not yet do reliably. The history of overpromised medical technologies is long, and the communities most harmed by poorly designed or prematurely deployed interventions are rarely the ones making the deployment decisions. Medicine has always advanced by building instruments that extend what a human being can perceive, remember, and reason about. The stethoscope, the microscope, the X-ray machine, the MRI scanner, each one redefined what diagnosis meant and what a physician was capable of knowing. Artificial intelligence is the next instrument in that lineage. It is arriving faster than most institutions anticipated, and with fewer of the clean answers that regulators and clinicians would prefer. The diagnostics revolution is underway. Whether it becomes a revolution that reaches everyone, or one that deepens the divisions already built into medicine, is a question that technology alone will never answer. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel.